And the UK is second only to the US in embracing the 140-character communication. Launched in 2006, it played a big part in Barack Obama's election campaign, was invaluable to the Iranian protesters, and was blocked by China during the 20th anniversary of Tiananmen Square. But its critics accuse it of creating false ideas of community, which can distort people's ideas of their closeness to others. Sophie Hutchinson tweets.
Do you tweet? The Twitter phenomenon that's gripped millions of people across the world is one of the most successful social networking sites. Like mobile phone texting, it allows users to send out short messages of up to 140 characters to anyone who cares to read. Those receiving these so-called tweets are known as followers, and some have hundreds of thousands.
Well, what's really exciting about sites like Twitter and Facebook is that they give the power to individuals to share their content and ideas with potentially millions of people. And there's never been a time in history where it's been so easy and so accessible for people to have so much power.
The popularity of Twitter has soared ever since it was set up 3 years ago. And because the company doesn't release statistics, estimates of the numbers of users vary, but some put it as high as 45 million worldwide. And growth in the UK is said to have skyrocketed, with an extra 3 million people signing up in the past year. And according to BBC research, almost as many people join to keep up with friends as they do to follow a celebrity. There are hundreds, so we tried to tweet some. Politicians are also using it, but not all are convinced it's the way forward.
I think the trouble with Twitter, the instantness of it, is I think there's too many twits might make a twat.
The Archbishop of Westminster certainly doesn't see it as a laughing matter. He's warned that the transient nature of the relationships formed online could leave teenagers traumatised. US Marines are banned from using Twitter because it's seen as a security risk. But here the Ministry of Defence has told Newsnight it's going to positively encourage soldiers at war to tweet. And for others, Twitter has become an invaluable source of news. When a US Airbus was forced to land on New York's Hudson River, the first images were posted on Twitter. And in the aftermath of Iran's controversial election, Twitter became an outlet for the opposition protests.
I think it's clear that there are now new ways for people to communicate that governments can't control. If you're in Iran during the election, you can get your messages out about what you're seeing happening to people on the streets. If you're in China and there are riots, you can tell people. This is not going to go away. It's holding politicians to account in a new way. Foreign policy, Gordon Brown said a couple of weeks ago, is no longer going to be something that could be run by elites.
So with millions tweeting across the world, can Twitter actually make any money?
The great unknown about Twitter is it's a phenomenal business. It's grown quicker than Google. It is in everybody's heads. Lots of us are using it. None of us are spending money with it. They haven't worked out the model, whether it's advertising, whether it's being bought by a big company like Google. We'll have to wait and see.
With a great deal of internet startups, for example, Google, they weren't monetized from day one. And what happens is, as they get an installed base of millions of users, the monetization comes afterwards. So there's several ways that Twitter could monetize itself. For example, it could start charging for its service, it could start charging for premium access to specific people and specific subscriptions.
So did any of the celebrities get back to me? John Prescott, Stephen Fry, Britney Spears? No, Jonathan Ross did though, but he said he's away and so not really checking into his account. Whether Twitter can improve its own accounts and find a way to make money is a question for the future, but analysts seem convinced that sites like this are here to stay.
Sophie Hutchinson. Well, earlier I spoke to the co-founder and CEO of Twitter, Evan Williams, who's in San Francisco, and I incorporated some of the suggested questions viewers sent us as tweets. First, I asked him if there was some special alchemy that makes Twitter special, or is it simply building on other messaging services?
Well, everything on the internet and sort of in technology builds on other stuff, and we stood on the shoulders of giants in many ways, but Twitter adds a nuance and new sense of connectivity that is fairly unique.
Have you done any work to find out why it is so successful in the UK?
No, but we've definitely noticed the UK has exploded for us recently. It's actually, London is our top Twitter using city as of today, and the UK is second only to the US in terms of number of Twitter users.
But doesn't it create a false sense of self and a false sense of what is community?
I don't think it's false necessarily. I mean, people use technologies to communicate. It's not any less real than using the telephone to communicate. I don't think people consider that a false sense of community.
Except if you're using the telephone, you generally know who you're speaking to. This is a kind of amorphous mass that isn't speaking to each other. Is this not really just a service for reading about what famous people are doing?
Actually, that's not what our data shows. And famous people are certainly popular on Twitter, but there's a lot of friend communication that goes on with Twitter that's mixed in with news, celebrity, business, you name it.
But do you feel comfortable about the fact that when you go on Twitter and you look for Demi Moore, there are several Demi Moores. You can't verify who the real Demi Moore is. Does that not worry you?
Well, if you look at the Demi Moore's real account, her username is Mrs. Kutcher, and you'll see a verified account badge. We actually do verified known entities, and we go to some manual work to verify them for users. So there's less chance of impersonation.
How do you verify that?
In Demi's course, I've actually talked to her personally.
And what is it that Demi Moore loves about Twitter so much, do you think?
Well, I can't speak for her, but Demi and Ashton, a lot of Hollywood folks have taken to Twitter as just a way to connect with fans and a way to have their own voice that's not mediated through the normal outlets where that has been their only representation for years. They can actually speak to people directly and interact with them, and I think a lot of people find that very powerful.
Another way that Twitter's come into its own is when there's been a big world event. Do you regard Twitter as a form of journalism?
It's not necessarily journalism, certainly not in the classic case, but it does enable people to report news and events as they're happening, and often from the ground. I mean, as we just saw in Iran, people on the streets reporting what was going on. It was newsworthy content that people were tweeting. There's also obviously a lot of commentary about what's going on, but it doesn't take the place of journalists or news because you still need analysis, you still need verification of this information, but it adds another layer to the information ecosystem.
During the Iranian uprising, it said that you delayed technical work on the site to keep the site going so the protesters could send messages. Is that right?
We did delay some technical work. That was something we did in working with our network provider, and we had scheduled maintenance that would have been during the middle of the night or during the off-peak hours for us, but it happened to be during a very key time in Iran, and we ended up putting that off a day, so it was more in the middle of the night there.
Was that of your own volition, or were you asked to do that by the U.S. government?
There were many people who asked us to do that, and including someone from the State Department. But it wasn't. That's not why we did it. We did it because we thought it was the best thing for supporting the information flow there at a crucial time, and that's kind of what we're about is supporting the open exchange of information. So it seemed like the right thing to do.
But are you aware that the Archbishop Vincent Nichols is very concerned that Twitter dehumanizes a very important part of our social life?
I wasn't aware of that. I think it's kind of silly. I would say anyone who says that isn't really familiar with the service, because it's about humans connecting with each other and often in ways that they couldn't otherwise. And it's the opposite of dehumanizing as far as I'm concerned.
Might Twitter just be a fad?
The only reason Twitter itself would be a fad is if someone comes along and does it better.
Evan Williams, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was an extraordinary meeting today. The Scottish